Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, senior editor at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, with you for another episode of the Steelers Preview. That's right, we're live on YouTube and on Facebook Live. So if you're just listening to us in audio form and ever want to check us out on YouTube, go to YouTube.com, search BTSC Steelers Radio. We have a great community there. At Facebook, just search Behind the Steel Curtain. We have over 100,000 followers on that platform. And you're going to notice, if you're watching us live, that there's only two of us. That there's no third. I'm joined by Dave Schofield, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. What's up, Dave? How are you this evening night?
What's up? I'm good. I'm fine. I'm ready for week one. Let's get there.
Right, we are too. I think everyone is. And no Bryan Anthony Davis. He's a little under the weather tonight. I said, hey, Bryan, if you're not feeling well, this is the week to take off. It's like a bye week, so there's no previewing an actual game. We're just talking about stuff. So Bryan's taking the night off. He's been busy. He's been working hard. We had some big news on the podcast platform recently. The month of August was our largest month ever for the podcast platform, and so that's huge news. That is all. I mean, that's think about that. That's just the preseason. No real regular season games. It beat last November. So. Dave, you're a big part of that. Anything you want to say about the podcast platform?
Hey, it doesn't matter if people don't listen. That's right. What it's all about. We say yay. It's not about us. It's about you.
Yeah,
it's about
you
for listening and caring and buying into and checking out BTSC, whether on the podcast side, on the editorial side, or hopefully both. And hopefully we are your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers.
Right. And if you didn't know about the audio platform, anywhere where you get your podcasts, all you have to do is search Steelers or Behind the Steel Curtain. You'll find us, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Pod, doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. So just want to make that announcement. And Dave, I want to give you a platform to talk about a little giveaway we are doing. Yeah. Go ahead. I know you previewed this on the Scobro show, and I'm sure the people on YouTube have heard it a bunch, but it's worth reiterating. So go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you remembered, because I forgot to remind you before we started that, yes, we are doing our, once again, third annual. We got to say third annual because it's our third time. We've done it each year where we are doing a survivor pool. I came up with this idea because, I know Andrew Wilbar this year did a BTSC fantasy football. You only have so many people that can do that. With this, we can have as many. We just start making, at first I thought we could just have as many as you want. Then I realized you got to cut off each league at 100. We're in the league 2 already, and it's filling up. So we'll just keep making new leagues. All the people that would like to do it, everyone's invited. Just ask that you only do one entry per username. We don't even have an age requirement. If you're under 18, it's okay. We just got to give the prize away if you win to an adult. And for those of you that don't know what Survivor football is, real quick, week 1, you pick a game. You pick one team. If that team wins, you move on to week 2. If that team loses, you're out. Then you go to week 2. You got to do it again. And the only stipulation is you can't use the same team twice. Once you use a team, you can't use them anymore. And if you make it far enough and we get to week 15, then you got to start picking 2 teams every week. So the first year that we did it, we didn't make it that far. Last year we did. But this year the prize is an autographed Joe Hayden football. I feel bad because I had it here for the Scobro show to show it, but I don't have it here. So what is it, Jeff?
No, I'm laughing because it's like what you said. It was the day that we ran the article on the website announcing it's a Joe Hayden autograph football, which is really cool. I mean, we've had some big name players. We had Marquise Pouncey last year, I believe.
2 years ago.
2 years ago, I'm sorry.
No, you're right. Last year was Pouncey.
Who was it 2 years ago?
David DeCastro.
Okay, so we've had some big name players that were giving away autograph footballs. And then the same day, I had to write the article about how Joe Hayden's like, about that extension, I'm just going to test free agency after the season.
Because they were too far away on numbers.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And he's like, Joe Hayden's like, hey, if that's all you're going to offer me now, then let's wait till next year. So, the problem, no, it wasn't just the same day. It was the very next article. The very next article was the contest.
Womp, womp,
After you did the one about Joey. That was funny. But yeah, it's lots of fun. Make sure you get in there. A lot of the BTSC staff is in there. I tried to get all of us in the first one so the people that signed up first got to be with all the staff, but they didn't all listen. I don't know. Is Coach Mr. Captain Blue Checkmark even in there at all yet? I don't even know.
I don't know. I talked to him today and just didn't even think about asking him that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if he'll get in one of them. I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll make sure you get in there. But I'll go ahead if you're listening right now on YouTube or Facebook Live. I'll go ahead and give you the info to the league that's left right now. I got to say, I think there's about 30 spots left in League 2. There's 31 left in the second league. As soon as it fills up, then I'll just update the article with the third league.
Yeah.
But right now, if you would like to enter, I got to look at this here. You could go to Yahoo Survival Football, and the group ID number is 15405.
Hold on.
15405, and the group password is all lowercase Steel Curtain. So if you're listening now, you could even go get in there right now if you haven't.
What is the password?
Steel Curtain, all one word. STEELCURTAN.
Is that case sensitive?
It is case sensitive. It's all lowercase. And it's funny, when I did this on Scobro show, I said, I got to make sure I spell curtain right. And then I didn't. I skipped the R.
And that's Yahoo.
Yeah, that's through Yahoo. The other way you can do it, you can go to behindthesteelcurtain.com. And I think right now it's in our top 6 articles that you can see it right there. It's got the link right in there. You don't even have to type in the number or the password. If you go to the link in the article, it'll just load it right up, and you can just if you're signed into Yahoo already, if you have another Yahoo account, it'll already have that in there, and all you have to do is join. It's really simple to do.
So, I mean, this is free. That's another thing. Like, it costs nothing. So, like, if you're just looking for something fun to do with a pretty cool reward, it's not like, hey, we're just doing it for bragging rights. I mean, you can win an autographed football. So, go to behindthesteelcurtain.com. If you're listening in the audio side, we'll have the article up there every day so that you can see what it is, get all of that information. Anything else about that, Dave?
I think I talked more than enough about it, didn't I?
All right. Well, I feel like we need to celebrate a little bit. I feel like we need to pop some champagne or something like that. Or maybe it's just me, because people were talking about it in the live chat already, and someone said it's a good thing that the autograph football wasn't a Jordan Berry autograph football. Well, first and foremost, I don't think those exist. Number two, he's no longer even a potential to return to the Steelers. After he was released, he got signed by the Minnesota Vikings today. And
good for him.
Well, sure, he kicked well. I don't want to take anything away from his preseason.
If he's in the dome, that's a great place for him.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that.
Oh, really?
But no. And so everyone's like, oh, he could still get cut and come back. It's like, you know what, people? Like, this is what my Twitter meant.
I didn't even say it.
No, it's fine. Hey, this is what my Twitter mentions are. My Twitter mentions are literally like, hey, Jeff's got to be so excited to see that Jordan Berry signed with another team and he can't come back. And then there's always those people which are indicative of the negative Nancy Steeler fans, like, well, there's still a chance he gets released. It's like, come on, guys, like, give me a break. But still, good luck to Jordan Berry.
Which Colquitt did he replace?
Not
I can't remember.
Dustin.
No, it's not Dustin. It's the other one.
Yeah.
Sort of the B. I can't
remember.
Brennan.
No, it's not Brennan.
But it's funny because who was it? Someone on Twitter, it might have been Mark Cabali, said something about, okay, so Jordan Berry gets replaced by Dustin Colquitt. Dustin Colquitt then gets replaced by Jordan Berry. Jordan Berry gets replaced by Presley Harvin. Jordan Berry then goes on to replace, was it Brandon Cole? I'm like, don't even say about bringing even Colquitt here. No, we love our big press. We love our thick kick. We love I'm not even going to say Brian's name. There's a
Big Hero 6 is another
one. 6 is another good one. Yes. Now. We love you. Get the job done. Just get the job done. That's all I got to do.
All right. I do want to talk to you about one other thing, which is kind of news-based, that I want to get your take on before we get into the crux of this podcast, which are impact players that aren't really being talked about right now. Mm-hmm. I want to get your thoughts on Carl Joseph. So Carl Joseph, if people have not been paying attention, was signed to the Steelers practice squad, the Steelers 15, because we don't need to use all 16 people on their practice squad.
I told you why I think that's happening.
I know. But still, he's on the practice squad. And then Jerry Dulac of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette says, well, they're going to promote him to the active roster once he clears COVID protocols. Okay, so Dave, my first question to you, because you're analytical like this, if he gets promoted, who do you think gets booted from the 53? Because someone's going to have to. What's your guess?
Okay. I'm going to give you my guess, and then I'm going to give you my prediction.
It's just such a Dave answer.
No, I'm going to give you my guess of what it should be, and then I'm going to tell you another reason why it could be something else, because it's a very interesting story.
Okay.
And that is, I would say it should either be, it could still be Marcus Allen going on the IR. There just wasn't any rush to get in there. I kind of messed this up a little bit because everyone kept saying 3 weeks in the IR, 3 weeks in the IR, 3 weeks in the IR, which is true. But I'm like, wait, if they go on now and there's a whole nother week before they play a game, does that mean only 2 games? No, it is 3 games. The reason that's the rule is so that way you can't take advantage of the bye week. So if you have throughout the season, so if you put a guy on IR in week 4 and your bye week is in week 6, you're going to miss, games 4, 5, and 7. So that way, you couldn't use the bye week to do something like that. But anyway, so putting him on next week wouldn't hinder that at all. He'd still be on about the same timeline. So that's still a possibility because we don't know was it hamstring? Something with his leg with Marcus Allen.
Yeah, it's a hamstring.
Yeah. So that wouldn't shock me because they kept so many inside linebackers if that's still a move that's coming. Another move that could be coming is one like a UG3 or someone else that just gets cut from the inside linebackers. That would be, I would think would be, I don't think they're going to bring back someone like an Arthur Mallette after releasing him from the 53 to then just release him again because of if they had that in mind. That's not the way the Steelers would generally do it. But it's not impossible to be that way because I don't know if you caught this on the Slack channel. I went back to try to get a screenshot of it, and they had changed it. I was looking at the Steelers depth chart on the mobile app, and they had Joseph on there. They had him at strong safety as the number 2 in front of Miles Killebrew.
Wow.
And I'm like, this can't be right. And there was a player missing from the depth chart. It was BJ Finney. And I'm like, is that the move they're going to make? Is that why? I went back and checked it 10 minutes later, and Finney still wasn't there. It might have been changed ever since, but Joseph wasn't there anymore. I'm like, that's very strange that was like that
is
for
weird.
A little bit.
That's weird.
So that's the only reason I would say that it could be somebody else. But I think that the position to go with is inside linebacker where they kept 6.
Inside linebacker, defensive line too.
They're down to 7 now, which is what they carried during the season last year.
Right. You're going to get to it back. I mean, if you cut, with Wormley healthy, that changes a lot of stuff. So Bugs, you could maybe make him expendable, or even Carlos Davis, if they weren't happy with him, that could be an option as well. But okay, let's now get to if Joseph is promoted, how do you see the Steelers utilizing him like that?
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say.
Like the Antoine Brooks, Antoine Brooks Jr. He had the first shot at the slot. And I think Arthur Mallette has a chance, but I'm just curious how you think they'll use Carl Joseph.
Yeah, I mean, is he from this? I'll be honest with you. I don't know a lot about him. I really don't, because you know why? He wasn't on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I started to look at him a little bit before. I know he played at WVU.
Yes.
I started to look at him when they brought him in, and then I'm like, I don't know if this is going to happen. And I mean, he was a 14th overall pick in 2016.
14th or 16th, but still, he was a first-round pick.
Yeah, it was according to Pro Football Reference, it was 14th.
Okay,
but also, who has a tendency to reach on players early? That would be the Oakland Raiders. I mean,
DHB.
Yeah, well, Jamarcus Russell. I would even say I had pegged 2 years ago if they didn't trade up for Bush the was it Clellan Farrell as a possibility?
The Clemson pass rusher.
And he went, what was that, 3 or 4? It was something crazy.
Early, yeah.
It was way early. So sometimes they have a tendency to do that. And I don't think Carl Joseph was expected by anyone to go that high. So and that might have been part of the reason why I struggled. I know it's like a
Terrell Edmonds situation.
Exactly.
It's not his fault that he got drafted so early, but then he has these expectations heaped on him, and it's just tough to live up to.
You are exactly right. And I don't know enough about him because I had someone ask me about it on Twitter, and I'm like, I don't want to tell you and tell you wrong. I don't know that he would be the answer of strictly this is your slot cornerback and he's going to be in here all the time. I don't know that he's that answer because I don't know that Brooks was necessarily going to be that answer either. Yeah. That's why they mentioned it they kind of say like committee, but I don't really know that it's really by committee. I could see him almost like what Marcus Allen was starting to show us in that. I didn't even notice until Jeffrey Benedict pointed it out in the Steelers' final preseason game that they were using him, even though they were technically a nickel. He was at linebacker, but playing in a way that the dime player would be playing. I think they would use him in sub package, but I don't know that I could necessarily define exactly how they would use him, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and a lot of people point to the injuries of Karl Joseph. So I looked it up. I was curious about his injury history, and he tore his ACL in 2015, and then he had like 2016. It says there's a sprain, like a toe injury, and he had a groin in 2017, a hamstring in 18, and a foot sprain in 19, and 2020 he had a hamstring injury, but it only kept him out a few weeks. So I mean, I don't feel like, the ACL is legitimate. That's a big time injury. We're not downplaying that. It seems like just a regular NFL player that's getting these hamstrings, groins, stuff like that. Yeah. So we'll see. And let's be honest, he's not on the active roster as of now. This is being recorded, so I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse, so to speak. But any other practice squad players jump out to you, Dave, that they signed that you're like, oh, this is actually a decent potential here with this particular player?
I'm glad they got Mark Gilbert there. He was one that I was one of the few I was concerned about, him and Q from the U, which unfortunately they did not get there. And that is, I might be completely off here. I think that's why they only have 15, because they were banking on that one as a 16th, and he got claimed off waivers. And rather than scramble and just throw anyone on there, the Steelers don't practice again until Monday?
Yeah, I think so.
So, yeah. Although they could get him up to speed, otherwise they could still, especially if it's someone who they had on their roster, they could take a little bit of time for that one. But we'll see. That was losing Roche. I'm trying to remember who else was there.
Do you like Sims, the receiver / return man?
That was the other one. I keep getting them mixed up with the other Sims. There was 2 Sims last year, and I don't want to get too excited over that. These kind of moves are intriguing because you're like, they cared enough to get them from another team, but get them onto their practice squad. So I don't want to get too excited over practice squad guys, because as soon as you're like, oh yeah, practice squad. Like, remember the return of, wait, I'm going to screw it up. What was it? Sutton Smith. Was that his name?
Well, Sutton Smith, he didn't even make the team.
No, but they brought him back to the practice squad
for like one day.
For one day, and then they were like, he's back. And then they cut him. Then they brought him back a few days later for like a week, and then cut him again.
That is so funny.
It was literally
brought him up.
Day.
On my Let's Ride podcast, I literally brought him up and talked about him today. It was just out of the blue, like his name popped into my head, and I was like, "Remember Sutton Smith? Everyone was obsessed with Sutton Smith." Yes. That's crazy that you brought him up just out of the blue.
So I don't want to get. I like that Kevin Rader's there. Believe it or not, that's one that I really like. That they could do that. You don't want to have to use, a roster spot for 4 tight ends, but he's a guy that I could see coming up. I also know there's been some other people, people that do what we do that were upset about the Steelers at tackle. Why aren't they adding a tackle? Where are they adding tackle? With Banner going on the IR. Well, first of all, they had to do something else at guard. They had no depth at guard. Those guys were coming back. But if you really want to look at tackle, I liked how Chaz Green looked in the preseason, and you've got to think that if someone gets dinged up at tackle, I'm not going to be shocked if he's going to be protected for them a lot. And then that's someone that they could elevate if someone's hurt and they need more depth at tackle to have on the sidelines just in case. Because I think he looked. I did not expect him to do what he did in the pre. It's like this, like Lance used to say, those dash guys. You know what I mean? You thought they signed him and he was just going to be a dash guy, and he did better than that, and he deserved the spot or the practice squad.
All right. Well, that's all good information. And I don't want to be repetitive with these evening shows. I'm sure that, Michael and Jeffrey talked a lot about this stuff. So we're going to talk about something a little different, kind of think outside the box, which we often do on the Steelers preview. And since there's no game coming up this Sunday, we're just going to talk about some players that I viewed as impact players. So players that are going to have some type of impact on the team, and yet have not been talked a lot about this preseason. And so immediately for me, it eliminates every single rookie, like right off the bat, because I feel like rookies have a spotlight on them no matter what. Everyone's watching to see how the rookies do. And they had 9 and they were still all talked about a lot. So immediately when you're listening to this, you're thinking, okay, well, first we're going to go with no, there's no rookies on my list. I don't think, Dave, you didn't have any rookies, did you?
No.
On your list? Okay. And now Bryan did give us a list. He's just not here to talk about it. So we'll go through his list as well. Dave, you and I only have 1 player, 2 players overlapping, and Bryan, I have 1 with him. So I'm going to start off and we'll talk.
I'm checking Bryan's. I have 1 with him as well.
Okay. So we'll meander our way through this. Okay. I'm going to go with my first, which, Dave, you have this player as well, and we'll talk about this, and that's Trey Turner. Mm-hmm. Trey Turner is a guy who I think is really important for the Steelers' offensive line. He is the veteran on that group. But boy, was it weird. He signs after David DeCastro gets released, and no one has really talked about him since. There were a couple moments where a couple people there at practice regularly said, Turner hasn't looked that great, kind of looks a little rusty, nothing more than that. And since then, nothing. Like nothing. He's not, what are his PFF scores, Dave? Have they been good? Have they been bad, indifferent? Like what? I don't even know. We haven't heard about him. Not good. Okay, not good. That's fine.
With the rest of the offense, there's plenty of other players in there that are worth. He's not as bad as Chooks, but still not.
He also doesn't have a lot of snaps. He also does not have a lot of
45 snaps
in four preseason games.
Yeah,
right?
We only played in 2 of them. Yeah,
exactly. So I'm saying there's not a ton of snaps there.
Yeah.
So I think he's incredibly important and an impact player. If he can, and Jeffrey Benedict is comparing him to elder statesman Ramon Foster, meaning Ramon Foster in his final few years, who is still an impact player. Dave, why don't you go ahead and talk about Trey Turner and why he made your list?
Yeah, he made my list just because, like I said, that he's a guy that is, if he struggles, the Steelers are going to be in trouble. They are. And right now he hasn't really given any indication that he's not. If you look at his 2020, he struggled. If you look in the preseason, he didn't blow us away. To put it kindly at times, but he is one of those players. He's a better pass blocker than he is a run blocker, at least recently. But you still got that Pro Bowl potential in there that you're just saying, hey, can we get that out of him? Can he get comfortable and confident enough with this team that he can do that? Because think about it. What was it? It was the August 21st was the Lions game. That's the last time he's been on the field. So he's going to have all that time still to try to build up to, because if you're not confident in what you're doing as an offensive lineman, you're going to be a half a step slow, which is, I would say, 7/16 too slow, if you know what I mean. So almost a half, which is not good at all. So really, if he gets fully acclimated and this is still what you get, then you might have to start thinking about if you have other options on the team that could step in there more.
Can an offensive line and can Trey Turner kind of get acclimated and gel in a practice setting? Can they actually get that done? Can they gel in that setting? Because that's all they have right now. You just mentioned it's been since early August that he's been on the field. So do you think, and you coached it, you've played it, the offensive line, can an offensive line, if all of them are together, they're practicing day in, day out, they're getting after it, can they show up in week 1 and be like, wow, they look like they've actually got their crap together?
Honestly, I'm going to say yes, as someone that mainly thinking of it as much from a coach's perspective, that even just when I would be doing individual drill work, and when I say not individual, we would break it down and do just guard tackle scenarios where you would have a defensive lineman and a linebacker, and you would have to, practice who's going to block and do these things. And then when you're out there just running your offense, even if it's against a scout team, bottom line is that every snap you take in practice with the guys that you're going to be playing with is something that helps you to develop more together and have an idea what they're going to do. Because if you're zone blocking, if he's zone blocking with the tackle, let's just say, and he's not 100% confident, they're not on the same wavelength, this should be one of those things where they come to the line. You don't even have to look at, you ever had that thing where all you have to do is a lot of times, like with your spouse, all you got to do is something happens, you look at them, they look at you, and you instantly know that you're both thinking the same thing.
Yep.
These guys shouldn't even have to look at each other. They should come up and they should see that defense, and they instantly should have confidence that they know exactly what the guy next to them on your right and on your left are going to do. And practice helps that in that respect to gain that confidence and figure it out.
No, you're right. You are right. Let's go to another player. We'll leave Trey Turner. And this is a player I had on my list, and so did Brian. That's Chris Boswell. And it's good when you don't have to talk about your kicker. And let's be honest, Sam Sloman had no chance at all of winning. It was just a camp leg. We always talk about camp arms with quarterbacks. He's a camp leg. But Chris Boswell, I'll ask you this because I can never get rid of 2018 in the back of my head. It wasn't that the year 2018 that he was dreadful. I mean, missing kicks, chip shots.
Because it was 2017 where he was coming through and it was like game-winning kick. Just get Boz close enough. He hasn't really had that. And then 18, it just wasn't
2018
the same.
Was awful. It was awful. And then 2019 rebound. He had a good season last year.
Yeah, but 19 and 20, he hasn't had to make those kicks.
Right.
That's why that's in the back of your head.
Maybe
because when he had I'll never forget the great hook and ladder to set up the Boswell kick to send it to overtime, and he just wipes out
Oakland, right?
In Oakland. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That summed up the year right there that he was having. And that was because that was 2018. And we haven't seen him have to come through with the clutch kick with 3 seconds left on the clock or even a minute left on the clock. He just hasn't been tested in that manner since then. And, enough to really instill confidence, but I 2 years removed from that. I think he's fine.
I mean, he hasn't been talked about for a reason. That's because he's making kicks. Hopefully Presley Harvin can hold the ball the way that he likes it. We'll see. Dave, give us who's someone on your list.
Someone on my list, I put one, Eric Ebron. I put Eric Ebron on this list, which is interesting because things got pushed back a little bit this week with some of our stuff because of the 53-man roster and practice squad. For those of you that are checking out BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers Vertex is on Friday. It will be out tomorrow. And it's on Eric Ebron. And it's actually on him as a blocker because there's people jump on narratives, kind of like how, Mason Rudolph, after he struggled in 2019, there's going to be certain Steeler fans that it doesn't matter what he does. This preseason, him not finding the touchdown zone didn't help. It's never going to be good. So one of those, just sometimes you have those players that you just get locked in and believe there's something. They believe that Ebron constantly drops the football, but almost all of his drops last year came after he had played more snaps than he ever had before and dealing with injury. So it was probably when you have a nagging injury, sometimes your mind isn't quite as clear on with the ball. But then they also say that he can't block. If you looked at the preseason games this year, and this is what Jeffrey and I lined up, you can't say that about him looking at this preseason. So Eric Ebron's very important. And another thing, Jeffrey just did this as a side note for our article. He says, if you go back and look at Eric Ebron, and there were times when Rudolph and Haskins were in the game, he was wide open, and he just wasn't the guy they were looking at to throw the ball. They're like, Ben Roethlisberger is not going to miss him being that open if Matt Canada's using the tight end in that way. I think Eric Ebron could be huge for this team this year, but so many people want the shiny new toy in Pat Freiermuth that people were saying trade Ebron. No, you need 2 tight ends. I think he's a guy that's going to come out and have a much bigger year than last year.
Well, for me, Ebron is for some reason, I don't know why. As long as I can remember, maybe it was when I was growing up watching Eric Green at tight end. But there is no prettier pass in the game of football to me than the beautiful touch pass down the middle, down the seam, over the linebacker, right over the shoulder, over the shoulder, and they catch it and they run. And I saw a few of those to Ladarius Green before he was hampered with his concussion issues and stuff. And I love that. And so that's Ebron. Like that's Ebron's wheelhouse. And the Steelers did not exploit that at all under Randy Fichtner, which they didn't do a lot of stuff under Randy Fichtner, but still that was one of them. For me, it was, I hope Eric Ebron has a big year. People want to cling to these narratives. Like I hope none of these narratives play out. For instance, I hope that we don't have to see Mason Rudolph. I hope that we don't see Deontay Johnson drop any passes. For some reason, Steeler fans, and it's not just Steeler fans, I'm sure it's every fan base, it's almost like some people are rooting against some players based on the fact that they want to keep these narratives going. It's really strange. Ebron falls into that category.
Yeah, I mean, just to throw out a number, and I mean, make sure you check out the article on Friday at Behind the Steel Curtain. But everyone's always like, oh, well, Freiermuth's a blocking tight end and Ebron isn't. If you look at, whether you like him or not, the PFF scores, Eric Ebron had was 21.7 points higher than Pratt Freiermuth in run blocking grade of a 77.4 versus a 55.7. Eric Ebron was one of the top blocking tight ends in the preseason. He was number 7 going into week 4, and he didn't play very many snaps and didn't get that great of a score, and therefore other people passed him. He finished 12th in the NFL as a run blocking tight end. And I mean, you don't mix Eric Ebron and run blocking tight end together. We're told that can't be. But if he's added that to his game, look out.
Yeah, it'll be good. I'll tell you what, we're at the halfway point. Let's take a quick break. If you're watching live on Facebook or YouTube, stay here. We're not going anywhere. If you're listening on the audio side, head over to part 2. We'll be right back after this break. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to the second part of the Steelers preview. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Dave Schofield. Bryan Anthony Davis fell ill and is taking some rest and recovery time. We're talking about players that have not been talked about a lot, but yet are needing to be discussed for their potential impact. And so, Dave, why don't you give us another player on the list? We've already gone over players like Eric Ebron, Chris Boswell, Trey Turner. Who's next on your list?
I've got Tyson Alawalu. And that's just because of who he's been with the Steelers ever since he's been with the Steelers. He's not been that flashy guy. And he's the kind of guy that you don't miss him till he's not there. And the Steelers almost completely missed him this year, but luckily they turned that around. But he's still such a crazy story. I know. I still can't get over that story. But he's he's not a guy that people talk about. And yes, he's one of the oldest guys on the team, but he's still out there getting the job done. And if he's still out there stuffing the middle at nose tackle and also possibly filling in some when they're in sub packages, staying on the field while Stephon Tuitt's on the IR, he's going to be an important guy and will be very much appreciated when the regular season gets here.
Think about what it would look like with Tuitt going to IR if there was no Tyson Alawalu.
Oh, yeah.
That would be drastically different. And yes, Chris Wormley is healthy. He talked about how that's such a big deal for him compared to last season. But he's not the same. He's just not the same. Tyson Alawalu he's one of those old guys that has all the savvy veteran moves and knows what to do in certain situations. So I agree with you. I think that absolutely he deserves it. He doesn't get talked about a lot unless he has a great game. He has a great game. Who do you see as being on the defense line while we're talking about it? As you have the starting group, who do you think is that going to be if you're naming all 3? Cam Heyward, we figure Lulu at nose.
It's going to be Wormley.
You think Wormley's going to be the other end?
Yeah. Okay. That's who it was in the preseason when they were all there, like against Detroit. It was, the depth chart went Wormley and then Mondo. And I don't think Mondo's going to start, but he's going to get some playing time because Jeffrey Benedict, I keep bringing him up, but he kept pointing him out. And you'll see it if you check in tomorrow when I have the full preseason PFF scores for the Steelers defense in an article. And like I said, whether you like PFF scores or not, but still, that Mondo was up there because he had a real good preseason.
Absolutely. So Alulu's good for that one for sure. I'm going to go with Derrick Watt for my next one. And this was weird. Early on, maybe even going back to mandatory minicamp, everyone was talking about Derrick Watt. Oh my gosh, they're running Derrick Watt on wheel routes. Oh my gosh, Derrick Watt just caught a pass on the sideline. Oh my gosh, Derrick Watt's being used a ton. And then the preseason came and Derrick Watt wasn't used hardly at all. He was basically what he was last year. I still think that they have a lot of this fullback stuff up their sleeve that they're going to do this season. I think that Derrick Watt is going to be utilized more as a blocker, but also as a receiver, as an option, as an athlete. I hope he is, and I hope he succeeds based on his salary. And that, my goodness, if you're going to pay a guy that much, you hope you get something out of it. Do you think that was all smoke and mirrors and let's just throw something against the wall and see if it sticks with Derrick Watt early in this offseason? Or do you think that he could actually be an impact player on the offense?
I mean, he played 8 offensive snaps in the preseason. I mean, it's crazy that, unless all of a sudden they're going to bring him out and really start utilizing them, I don't know what to expect with him anymore. I really don't. As soon as I think they're going to do one thing, then they don't. They don't use him all season, and then they hand the ball off to him twice in the playoffs.
I don't need him to get a handoff. You could, but
be on the field and be starter stuff. Honestly, there's so much of Matt Canada's offense that they weren't really showing in the preseason because they didn't want to. That for all we know, next thing you know, they're going to come out in a lineup where it's Najee Harris, Derrick Watt, Eric Ebron, Pat Freiermuth, and Chase Claypool. And you're like, oh my goodness, that's a huge lineup. And they're going to spread them 5 wide, or something like that. I'm waiting for just something crazy like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I haven't seen it. So
we'll see.
I really don't. Every time I say that, oh yeah, I think they'll use Watt more, they don't. So I'm going to say, no, they're not going to use him at all. That's what I'm going to say. And then maybe we'll finally get to see it.
So I know the live chat's talking about the other Watt in the contract. We're not talking about that, but let's go down to Brian's list. He put a player on here that I was going to not challenge him, but ask him about it and say, I feel like this player was talked a lot about this offseason. It was Cam Sutton, but he had him on his list as definitely an impact player. I guess my question for you, Dave, is how do you see them utilizing Cam Sutton this year? Do you have him at the outside and moving in? Do you have him staying on the outside and trying to fill his roles on the inside with someone else? What do you think the Steelers are going to do at that cornerback position?
Oh my goodness, that's the $1 million question. Do they have to put Sutton on the inside whenever they're going to that? Is Mollett going to be healthy? They brought him back. Is he healthy enough to do it? Is, like we said in the first part of the show, is Carl Joseph going to get moved up to the 53 and utilize him? I don't even know if the Steelers know. So how are we supposed to know?
And that's a big problem. That's a big problem if you're getting ready for a week 1 game against the Buffalo Bills, Stephon Diggs, and you don't know who your CB2 is on the roster. It gets awful.
Well, Jeff, but this has happened before. It's not like we've never seen this before. What was I going to say? Let me just throw one name out to you. Do you know what name I'm going to throw out to you?
I don't know, Antoine Blake.
No, I'm going to throw the name out to you. It's 2019 week 1. Okay, 2019 week 1. Who started at safety with Terrell Edmonds?
Week 1?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. He was
2 weeks before Minkah.
Was he number 29?
I can't remember what his number was. Hold on, I could try to find it real quick.
He
was number 29. You are correct.
So I get his number, but I can't remember the guy's name.
I wonder if anyone put it in the live chat now. It's Cameron Kelly.
Cam Kelly. There you go.
Remember that? Obviously the Steelers had not figured out what they were doing in the secondary. And then week 2, the starter was Sean Davis. Yep. And then week 3, it was Minkah Fitzpatrick when they made the trade. So
in San Francisco.
Yeah. So I don't want them to go into the season like that. But at the same time, I don't care what you have to do to figure it out. Figure it out.
Yeah, I don't know. This is one of the, like you said, it's $1 million question, and everyone's wondering what's it going to look like. I feel like we might not know until week 1, and maybe they want it that way.
Yeah.
And you listen to Keith Butler, read his transcripts. It's hysterical. He gets a dadgum this, dadgum that. It's so funny, but still,
I mean, he's so good. I wonder if Randy Fichtner's fart in a skillet last year was just trying to be like Keith Butler. You know what I'm saying?
Well, but then you get Danny Smith, who's talking about cutting Trey Norwood's eyelids off because that gets paying attention no matter what. You can cut his eyelids off. He's still. There is a cast of characters in Pittsburgh, that's for sure. All right, let's go. Let's go back to a guy that I have on my list, and you had him as well, and that's Deontay Johnson. You are the founding member of the fan club, Deontay Johnson fan club.
Oh, I should have brought down my signed mini.
Your signed mini helmet. There it is. He always brings up the signed mini helmet.
Got the signed mini helmet.
Deontay Johnson has not been talked about this preseason that much.
No.
He isn't. I don't think anyone's going to. I put a Twitter poll out there. Who do Steeler fans think is going to have the bigger impact this year? Chase Claypool or Deontay Johnson? Who would you answer that with, Dave?
I would answer Deontay Johnson, but I bet you anything that it was overwhelmingly Chase Claypool.
Well, let me look real quick.
See, because everyone. Well,
I'm trying to get up to date numbers. I'm trying to get up to to-date numbers. Yeah, I got the numbers here. Okay.
I was going to say, I'll stall for you, Jeff. No. Just because everyone's talking between, what's he going to do his second year of Chase Claypool, and what's he going to do now that he's come back for one year, Juju Smith-Schuster? Deontay Johnson is just kind of the guy that's, I feel, other than people talking about the drops, just kind of taken for granted, and he has a chance to just do what he does, and while actually catching the ball.
So just over 700 people have voted, so not a lot of people. But right now, Deontay Johnson is winning this.
What?
55% to 45%.
You know what? I am very...
And the question was, who will have the...
It's got to be what it is, because they are more informed than the casual Steelers fan. And that is... And it's nothing against Chase Claypool. It's that the flashiness of those other guys sometimes overshadows Deontay Johnson's just, he catches more balls, but he doesn't always get the flashy plays. He's going to, as long as he catches the ball, I think he's going to be the number one receiver this year.
Someone is going to benefit from Chase Claypool becoming a number one wide receiver. It could be Juju. It could be Deontay Johnson. It could be Ebron. It could be Freiermuth. It could be a number of players. And I think that Chase Claypool being that big play threat is going to really open up things. Let's get it to Connor. He gave us $4.99. He said, if this is Ben's last season, what do you think about the Steelers drafting Sam? Oh, we're talking about the draft.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Dave. I don't want to poo-poo on a live chat. Hey,
we appreciate the tip.
Thank you so much for the $4.99 into the tip jar. But my first question is going to be, who?
I don't know.
And no disrespect, it's just because this isn't what I'm not following college football right now. The Pittsburgh Steelers get ready for the week 1 game of 2021. You know whose problem that is? Future Jeff and future Dave and future Bryan that have to talk about this come March. That's a great question then. But for right now, I don't know who's out there and realistically where.
Well, hold on. I want to give Connor.
I'm sure he's probably really good, but
I want to give Connor his money's worth here, and Dave will ask you his question. Do you think that this is Ben's last season? Because if it's not his last season, it's null and void.
I could give you a fantastic Dave answer. And you know what that is? Yeah. You ready for it? Ask me during the bye week. Honestly, let's see how the regular season starts going. Let's see if Ben's not getting killed by this offensive line or things like that, or how it's all clicking and everything. And I think we'll be able to visibly tell with his arm if it's more. I already feel like what we've seen of him, it's in a better place than it was last year. But we saw 16 snaps in the preseason. So
it's good enough for me, man. It was good enough for me.
No, and he did great with him. But I would not be shocked if he comes back. I wouldn't.
Well, if my prediction of the Steelers being a double-digit win team this year come to fruition, and I am not saying 17-0 or anything like that, but if they win double-digit games, 10 or up, dude, that's very basic level mathematics. If they win double-digit games, they're not going to be in a position to draft a good quarterback.
Yeah.
And so in that regard, if you're winning double-digit games, and you did it with Ben Roethlisberger, bring BTR back for one more year and figure it out financially with the void years and all that stuff. I don't even know what that consists of. But
here's what's nice is that for the Steelers, they have a chance to move on from Ben if they want to after this year. People forget about that. It's not just about if Ben wants to come back or not. The Steelers don't have to say, oh, well, we are going to cut. No, it's just we're done. It's over. And, like they don't fire coordinators. They just don't renew their contracts. Yeah, they have that same option. So it's got to be for both. And I do want to say something. I know who Sam Howell is. I was just kind of being.
I don't.
Oh, you don't? Yeah, no. I've heard of him. I mean, don't you read at least the titles of the articles whenever Andrew Wilbar is putting out, players for next year already, like he was doing some this summer? That I'm pretty sure that was one of them. I know that. Was
it? Well, he did a lot of quarterbacks, and I didn't know any of them. So I'm like,
no, I've heard of Sam Howell. I know who he is, but also got to remember sometimes college. Who they say is the next big guy at the beginning of the college season is not. I mean, for all you know, he might end up being a round 4 guy, depending on how their season goes this year. I mean, I don't think so, but it's just how it is. Let's evaluate it when the time's right.
Well, and also not to mention, you always have like those Kellen Monds that just come on late and then they become a draft kind of. There's a buzz about them. And Trey Lance didn't even play last season. He played one game and he goes in the early rounds to San Francisco. All right, our boy Wes Hickok is his $5.
I want this one.
Go for it. He said J.C. Hassan was listed as the current starter on Pittsburgh's depth chart. Thoughts? Go ahead, Dave.
The thoughts are the Steelers' offensive line is screwed because they're going to only play with 4 players. If you're going by their depth chart, they don't even have a right tackle. They have no starting right tackle on the depth chart. Their depth chart means nothing. J.C. Hassenauer was listed first on the initial depth chart going into the Hall of Fame game. And he didn't start that game. He hasn't started any of the games. Don't take what their depth chart is really means nothing. The only reason I looked at it today was because someone had brought up the J.C. Hassenauer thing, like he was announced the starter. No. Okay, don't read into that at all. All they did now is at least they deleted out the names of people that aren't on the team anymore, but they haven't really changed that since the beginning of training camp.
I also don't think that the Steelers, if they're being forced by the NFL to do anything, like you have to update your depth chart, I don't think they have to do that until next week.
Yeah.
Based on the fact that this is not a game week. So keep that in mind. So all this stuff, they don't have to do anything.
And I will say something. It also depends on when you look at the depth chart, if you're looking at it on your phone versus on your desktop, because on your phone, they just list the players in order so you wouldn't see that there wasn't a starter. But if you look at it at Steelers.com and not on the mobile app, you see there's a space there where there's no name in there. So that's the difference if there's any discrepancy.
Wait till next week.
Yeah.
The game week, official game week. Yeah, that's when you'll get your first injury report and stuff like that. And we'll be
Tom on Tuesday.
Yeah, that's right. All right, let's get it. Evgeny Crosby. They're getting ready to start up here soon. Hockey. He said gave us $9.99. He said the Steelers love Ben Roethlisberger, the Bruni family, Mike Tomlin, Kevin Colbert. They're going to let Ben play until he can no longer play well or retire on his own. Not going to disagree with that at all. I mean, I think that they'll have they've done it with players before, Troy Polamalu, Hines Ward, where they said, look, we're not going to bring you back. You can either play for someone else or retire, and they ended up retiring. Do you think they would do that with Ben, Dave?
That's hard when he's arguably is he the best, that the franchise has ever had? Period. I mean, I don't know, because there's a lot of people in other positions.
What, the best quarterback in franchise history?
He holds records and stuff.
Except for one. That's what my dad always says. Yeah. Gosh, you can always tell the difference between like a Bradshaw Steeler fan and a Ben fan.
But I mean, the thing is, they'll have serious conversations, and I don't think the Steelers are going to be afraid to say, Ben, you know what? We love you. You've done so much for us. But this ain't 2005 anymore. This isn't even 2008. You know what I'm saying? You're getting there. We don't want you to go out like that Do you want to go out like that? If that's a conversation they feel like they need to have, the question is, at what point do they ever feel like they need to do that? And is Ben still around for it to be that point?
Well, also, I think it's important to note, too, that Ben might look at this, and the Steelers might as well. And let's say they run the ball better this year. Let's say Najee Harris has the look of a legit superstar in the NFL.
And they can actually block for him.
And they can actually block for him. Ben might say, I could go back to 2004, 2005 then. I'm throwing the ball 25 times. I'm handing it off. We have a good running game. Our defense is still really good. Then let's do it that way. And the Steelers could still find a way to win, and that could totally change the dynamic. Go ahead, Dave.
And this is, what did Ben Roethlisberger have when he came in to the NFL? He had
a really good offensive line.
Because they had a good running game and a fantastic defense.
Yeah.
If the Steelers could get back to that good running game and fantastic defense, you're basically talking about two things. You're either saying that's really good for not just a quarterback that's starting his career, but one that's ending his career. And you could also say you could be setting that up for the next guy starting his career. You could look at it both ways, but the offensive line still has a way to go. But the Steelers, they have some promising young guys that, I mean, we say they're promising, but now they got to get out there and show what they can do. We've seen from Kevin Dotson, there's great reason to be excited about him, but you're wondering about, if he's starting between two rookies is a possibility. What are we really going to get from them? That is what Steeler fans want to know. So
this is driving me nuts.
Okay.
Ben's first year, 2004, his offensive line, left tackle is Marvell Smith, left guard is Alan Faneca, center is Jeff Hardings, right guard is Kendall Simmons. Who is the right tackle?
From 2004?
Yeah, I cannot think of this for the life of me. Who was? It's not Max Starks because they were drafted in the same year and he didn't start
the same year. If you give me a little bit, I will get that for you here very shortly.
If someone in the live chat knows this, it's not trivia. It's that I can't think of it. It's driving me crazy.
So give me a second.
Right tackle, Marvell.
I'll get there.
Because Darnell Stapleton, that was 2009. Like that was Darnell Stapleton, Chris Kimoyatu. Like that was that line, and that was an awful line, by the way. Trey Essex is, I don't think it was Trey Essex. I don't think it was.
Hold on, I'm for some reason
Marvell Smith, I think, was left tackle.
I'll tell you exactly who started the most games.
I'm just talking about people in the live chat are guessing.
Yeah. We are talking about where'd it go? They're not listing it the same way. Okay, here we go. Gotcha. Left tackle was Marvell Smith.
Yes.
Right? You're not going to believe this.
What?
You're not going to believe this. Started 16 games. I never would have got this.
Who?
Oliver Ross.
Oliver Ross? That was in 2004. He started 16 games.
Started 16. All five linemen.
Who the hell is Oliver Ross?
Started 16 games. Who did you say the right guard was?
Wasn't it Kendall Simmons?
They had Kendrick Vincent.
Kedrick Vincent.
Kedrick.
I remember Kedrick Vincent.
Yeah. He started all 16 games.
So it wasn't even Kendall Simmons?
No.
Well,
Kedrick Vincent and Oliver Ross. Holy cow. I never would have got that.
That's Jeff trivia for tonight.
Yeah. So yeah, he started because he played for Dallas in 98, didn't play again until 2001 with the Steelers. And yeah, in 2003 started 11 games. In 2004
bring up 2005 for me one time.
Okay, 2005. Here,
Oliver Ross was not on the 2005 team.
I'm pretty sure he was not.
I would have,
because the right tackle by then was Max Starks.
Right guard.
Okay. Right guard was Kendall Simmons.
Okay. Yeah. Now we're getting somewhere.
So
I'm mixing them up.
So that's I never would have got either.
Oliver Ross. I'm a horrible Steeler fan. How do I not know?
I was at the last home game where they beat the Ravens to clinch the 1 seed. I was there, and I don't remember that name. Man, that's crazy.
That is.
Yeah.
Okay, so
we got off here, but
it's okay. Here's what I want to do.
Yeah. So you'll tell us in just a second. All right, now tell us.
tomorrow on the website, I took Dave's 5, my 5, and Brian's 5 and put them in an article. Check it out on BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. We talked about most of the names.
Yeah.
We didn't get
We
through
got all
everyone.
mine.
I don't know if we got through all mine, but I'm okay going off. We got on a little tangent there based on the super chats, and it kind of is a good lead way into trivia. I'm sure you have that, Dave. So let's get
do, and it's kind of similar to some stuff that we talked about, but we had the roster come out this week, and then we had 3 changes made the next day. Now, this time, it was all changes of players going to the IR. That's not always how it works. Sometimes you get players added and players dropped, like the infamous Tuzar Skipper in 2019, where he was on the 53, cut on, and that were they Monday night? No, I'm trying to remember.
2019.
Yeah, I know they were Monday night last year. No, I think they were Sunday. Bottom line is he got cut on Saturday and got claimed off waivers on Monday.
By the Giants, I think.
By the Giants. So it was one of those things where he was on the 53 and then he never, but he didn't end up there. This happens all the time where you get these forgotten players that start off on the 53-man roster. Last year, there were 2 players that started off on the 53-man roster that ended up not making it to week 1, one of which is your guy, Mr. Weasel Boy himself.
Yeah, Weasel Boy, Jordan. He always weasels his way back. That's what people on this show have said, like, why is Jeff calling Weasel Boy? Because he always weasels his way back.
There was another player that was on the Steelers' 53-man roster, did not make it to week 1, landed on the practice squad, got poached, never played for the Steelers, but was on their initial 53-man roster last year. Who was it?
On their 53,
He
said he gets cut, he goes on the practice squad, and then gets poached from the practice squad. Where does he go?
Well, first he went to Arizona. Then after several weeks, they put him on the practice squad. Then he got poached again by someone else. I was thinking Chicago, but I might be wrong. Was
this the return guy that Brian was in love with, or is that, am I thinking of someone else?
No, he didn't make the roster. That's why Brian got upset.
Right,
Deontay Spencer.
That's Spencer, yeah. I don't know.
How about maybe I can help you out a little bit with it.
Okay.
What if I told you that he was released because they signed another player at his position by the name of Sean Davis?
So it's a safety.
Yeah. I'm wondering if anyone, I would just be happy if anyone even had it in the live chat. He was on the 53-man roster last year, and we talked about him starting off there.
Safety? It wasn't Jordan Dangerfield, was it?
No, it wasn't.
Because he played last year.
Are you ready for it?
Yes, go ahead.
Safety Curtis Riley.
Oh, okay. He's a what is it? A gray face, nameless face. Nameless gray face.
I thought that was interesting because I went back to look at the 53-man roster from last year because I wanted to say, hey, I like the format that I did this with when they announced it. Let me look at how I did it last year. And I looked down through it and I saw that name and I'm just like, oh yeah. I'm pretty sure he's currently a free agent. I think he was in camp with Tampa. Oh, they put him on the IR. He's on the IR right now for Tampa is what it was. So he got put on the IR, but that was in July. That's early. So yeah, but no, he was he was kind of all over the place. Oh, and I said I thought it was the Bears. I was wrong. It was I think the Vikings might have picked him up. Yeah, it was crazy. He was kind of all over the place last year, but he started off with the Steelers 53-man roster on the first day that they had to have it done.
That's crazy. Sometimes when people talk about all these speculating names and stuff, I think of the scene from Dumb and Dumber where they're driving down the road and they say, "Hey, there's someone that needs a ride. Pick them up." Let's just pick them up. Like pick everyone up. Our Slack channel the other day was so annoying, where people were just like, "Oh, so and so got released. So and so." It's like, oh my gosh, this is worse than the draft. I couldn't stand it. This is worse than the freaking draft with speculation. But hey, question for you, Dave, to finish out the show. Next time we talk, we'll be getting ready for the Buffalo game. I'll be on location. Tell you about that in a later time. But will TJ Watt be under contract?
I don't know. But Dave answered. Hey, you asked Dave.
I know, but I want to know what you think.
No, I'm going to say, I don't know if TJ Watt will be under contract, but TJ Watt will be practicing.
So I think he's playing. I think
he returns to practice when they come back from their time off, which I assume is Monday. Or I think they'll come back Monday, maybe do meetings Tuesday, and then start again on Wednesday. I think, or it might even be by Wednesday. It might be when they start their week one actual prep. I think that's when he comes back fully, contract or no contract. For some reason, I don't see him holding out from playing in the regular season. I think it's going to get done. I still think a lot of people, too many people are looking at that wanting to hear what they want to hear, and they hear the opinions of people and they're taking it as inside information. It's happened. I feel like it happened to Jerry Dulac. I feel like it's continuing to happen with other people that cover the Steelers, and there taking this of, oh, well, should have been, but they're not going to leak anything. I projected it could have been done today, that it could have been done during this time off here. But we know they'll go right up to the last minute. But I don't think he holds out from actually playing. I just think there's why get hurt and risk that money for meaningless preseason games when he can do it when he's out there on the field and can go out and do his stuff.
My prediction: we'll be celebrating Labor Day here in the United States of America on Monday, and TJ Watt will be signing his deal that day.
Okay.
That's my prediction.
That's a good one.
All right, Dave, why don't you send us out?
Hey.
We'll see you next week to talk about Steelers versus Bills. Gosh, I'm excited. Woo-hoo. Have a good one, everyone. We'll see you next time.